Hello, once again. This is Ted King with King by the King Media TV, and we're back at you with another the most dangerous combat sport in the world, American politics. And once again, we have Mr. Heman Smith with us. Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Yeah, we were going to talk about the current Attorney General, Pam Bondi.
Yeah.
To get
Yeah.
started, that position was established July 1, 1870, the Department of Justice. And it's been there 155 years. And since then, they have 87 people have ran the Department of Justice.
Okay.
And in that time frame, three females have been in charge. Pam is the third one. The
Wow.
first one was Janet Reno from 1993, and she was put there by Bill Clinton. The second one was Loretta Lynch. She was put there by Barack. Pam
Okay.
Bondi, she's the third. She was put there by Mr. Trump. If you look
Yes.
at Pam Bundy's background, she graduated from law school in 1990.
Mm.
He worked as a prosecutor for 18 years. Now, when you go to law school, typically when you get out, you have options. The best go to corporate law or some law firm, and then those who don't at the top, they go to become prosecutors. For example, Clarence Thomas went to Yale, the number one law school. When he got out, he didn't have any offers from the number one law firms. Barack Obama, Michelle Obama went to Harvard, and Michelle Obama went straight to the corporate world.
Excuse me.
She went straight to the corporate world. That tells you she was highly recommended. And then she hired Barack. Barack graduated 3 years before her, and Barack went to voting rights. Michelle went to the corporate world. Now the money's in the corporate world, and Michelle went straight there. Okay. Now, when you
Okay.
go to Pam Bondi, she graduated from, I think, it's Stelton University Law School.
Mm.
The number one law school is back then was Yale. Okay, the school that Pam went to is ranked 99th out of all the
Wow.
law schools. Out of all the law
Uh,
schools, okay? Now,
wow.
she got married after she graduated from law school.
Mm.
She got married two times, engaged a third, and currently living with someone. So she doesn't mind
Okay.
having children. But anyway, when you got out of law school, you either go to the corporate world, you have private practice, or you become a prosecutor, like the
Uh-huh.
NBA. In the NBA, you get drafted to a team, or you go to the G League. Okay,
Right.
when you become a prosecutor, you go to the G League. She was there 18 years as a prosecutor, and she must have been very good because she was promoted to the Florida Attorney General. She was the first
Mm.
woman.
Mm.
So she must have been a very, very good prosecutor.
Okay.
70% of the criminals there are Anglo-Saxon, 26% are African American. Those are the
Mm.
ones that she would prosecute. But
Okay.
anyway, she became the Florida Attorney General. And what happened was, and she worked on Trump's presidential transition team in 2016. Now, when you
Mm.
become the Attorney General, it took her 18 years to become the Attorney General of Florida.
Mm.
Okay, because there are people who've been working there a long time, so she had to pay her dues. So
Right.
she worked for Trump's presidential team in 2016. She was his White House advisor,
Mm.
2019.
Mm. Okay.
He was part of his legal term team in 2020. And she belonged for a think tank for litigation, and she was co-chair for a Center for Law and Justice. Now,
Wow.
when she was appointed to the Attorney General slot, there were people who had been there 20, 30 years. Now,
Mm-hmm.
how would you feel if you were living with one of your parents for all your life, and your dad married somebody new, and they walked in and said, "Now I'm in charge." So the people at the Department of Justice, I'm sure there was some resentment because she had no experience working with them,
Right.
and she was appointed off the street by Donald Trump. Okay.
Exactly. Right.
Okay. Now, for her to do that, she had to be in alignment with Mr. Trump's policies. Now,
Absolutely.
when you talk about the hearings, and you mentioned about her reluctance to answer questions,
Right.
and you said, okay, if you don't answer questions or if you don't show up to Congress, it's considered a crime. Okay, it could be a
Hmm.
misdemeanor. But for it
Right.
to go through, Congress has to vote. A simple majority would say, oh, okay, this is a contempt resolution. Then it goes to a House committee, and then they would determine if it's a citation. And then it's sent to the Department of Justice, who
Hmm.
decides whether to prosecute. Now, Ted, who runs the Department of Justice? Okay.
Pam Bundy.
She would determine if it was a crime for someone who refused to answer questions to Congress. It goes to her
Right.
office. Okay, go to her office.
Hmm.
Okay. She be the one to determine that. When you look at the questions she refused to answer, they ask her about uh, Jeffrey Epstein
Hmm.
and for his sexual crimes, and because what's taking place, she didn't want to provide an answer. Now, see what takes place
Hmm.
because she's Attorney General. If she doesn't want to answer the questions, they can say that's contempt. But if any questions are related to President Trump, he could step in and say, well, all our conversations are under the umbrella for the executive privilege. So people who are asking her questions know the process, and she knows the process. So
Hmm.
for her to deny or refuse to answer questions, any charges that will apply to someone who refuses the questions are determined by her.
Hmm. Well, let's
Are
let's do
determined
this.
by,
Let's go to a a scene where she's avoiding some questions. So let's go to this scene real quick here.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Madam Attorney General, let me ask you this question. Were you consulted by the White House before they deployed National Guard troops to cities in the United States?
I am not going to discuss any internal conversations with the White House.
You won't even say whether you talked to the White House about this?
I am not going to discuss any internal conversations with the White House with you, Ranking Member.
I noticed that. What's the secret? Why do you want to keep this secret? The American people don't know the rationale behind the deployment of National Guard troops in my state. The word is, and I think it's been confirmed by the White House, they are going to transfer Texas National Guard units to the state of Illinois. What's the rationale for that?
Yeah, Chairman, as you shut down the government, you voted to shut down the government, and you're sitting here, our law enforcement officers aren't being paid. They're out there working to protect you. I wish you loved Chicago as much as you hate President Trump. And currently, the National Guard are on the way to Chicago. If you're not going to protect your citizens, President Trump will.
I've been on this committee for more than 20 years. That's the kind of testimony you expect from this administration. A simple question as to whether or not they had a legal rationale for deploying National Guard troops becomes grounds for a personal attack. I think it's a legitimate question. It's my responsibility. She refuses to answer as to whether she had any conversation with the White House about deploying national troops to my state. That's an indication, I'm afraid, where we are politically in this place. Let me ask you another question. I want to, if you will, hold on a second. Make sure I got the right page of facts here. You testified under oath when you last before this committee that before your appointment to Attorney General, you had served as a representative of some sort for the royal family of Qatar. There was an issue that came before you in May when President Trump accepted a $400 million luxury jet from the royal family of Qatar for temporary use as Air Force One before it's permanently gifted to the Trump Presidential Library Foundation. The Constitution unequivocally bestows on Congress the power to control whether any officer of the United States, including the President, may accept a gift, quote, from any king, prince, or foreign state, end of quote. And this gift clearly violates the statutory regime enacted by Congress. You've refused to answer a letter I sent to you 5 months ago asking the legal rationale you relied on to advise President Trump to accept this unprecedented gift from your former legal client. Can you make a promise today that you will disclose that?
Disclose what, Ranking Member?
I assume there was a letter or some sort of statement from your office to the White House to advise them that you felt it was permissible?
First, to address my role with Qatar, as I addressed with you during my confirmation hearing, I disclosed it in my SJQ. In private practice, I worked for Qatar for anti-human trafficking for the World Cup. That was my only involvement, and I made that very clear, and I'm very proud of everything I've done with anti-human trafficking. Obviously, in preparing any advice for the President on a jet or anything else, we consult with the Office of Legal Counsel. The confidentiality applies to their input as well. And Chairman, if you would approve and vote to approve, as Chairman Grassley said, excuse me, Ranking Member, as Chairman Grassley said, my employees, we would answer your letters a lot faster, yet you're stalling them at every stop. And to go back to your previous question, your city has a murder rate 5 times higher than New York's. 571 homicides last year. If you were serious about protecting your people, you would be asking this administration for help. You're saying that we're coming into your state and your city. We're there to help make America safe and Illinois safe, whether or not you want to.
I believe cutting federal grant programs to law enforcement in my state and across the nation does not make us any safer, and you've done just that. You've supplanted that decision by sending in National Guard troops to California and other places. That is a situation where the governors have not asked for that help. If you truly wanted to do this on a bipartisan basis, you wouldn't defy a governor, you would work with them. I'm prepared to do that. I'm prepared to work with this administration. But cutting these grants to law enforcement does not make us any stronger as a nation or give us the tools we need to reduce crime in Chicago. Now, I'd just like to ask you, when it came to this Qatar situation, did you consult with the ethics office in the Department of Justice before making your decision on this gift of a jet?
Chairman, I didn't gift a jet to anyone. My Office of Legal Counsel provides confidential advice to the President, to the White House, period. And you're conflating two issues. Cutting grants, I was very clear about what grants we've cut and what grants we haven't, only 7%. And if you have a grant in Illinois that you think that I've cut that is not that is protecting law enforcement officers or your people, you personally call me and I will work with you to turn that grant back on. I think many of the Democrats here can tell you, I have worked with them to turn grants back on. There's an appeal process. Tell me a specific grant that I have turned off in Illinois that would help law enforcement, and I will work with you. But you have not done that.
Did you take a look?
The National Guard is on the way right now as we speak. Oh, by the way, so is Director Patel and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. You're sitting here grilling me, and they're on their way to Chicago to keep your state safe.
Madam Attorney General, it's my job to grill you. The investigation of your agency is part of my responsibility and this committee. You may not like the experience, but others have weathered the storm and answered questions in a respectful manner.
Can you tell me the grants,
yes.
Ranking Member, please?
Take a look at the President's budget on HIDA grants. What happens to it in his proposed budget?
I'd be glad to meet with you on the grants.
It's cut by 1/3 from $300 million to $196. That's one example of a grant that works, and your administration has suggested cutting it in the budget lies ahead. I want to ask you about items in a letter I sent you in July that you have not answered. In February, you made a public claim that the Epstein client list was, quote, sitting on my desk right now for review, end of quote. You then produce already public information and no client list at a major media event hosted at the White House. Attorney General Bondi, why did you publicly claim to have the Epstein client list waiting for your review and then produce nothing relevant to that claim?
Senator Durbin, if you listen to my entire clip on that, I said I had not reviewed it yet, that it was sitting on my desk along with the JFK files, the Martin Luther King files, and I said I had not yet reviewed it. And if you see our memo on Epstein, you will see, excuse me, our memo on Epstein clearly points out that there was no client list, our July 6th memo. You also didn't let me respond to the HIDTA question. The budget transfers $196 million for high-intensity drug trafficking areas to the Office of Justice Programs, OJP. The Justice Department will continue to administer those grants under OJP in 2026.
Going back to the Epstein files, according to another whistleblower who made a protected disclosure to my office, you pushed the FBI to review approximately 100,000 Epstein-related records on an arbitrarily short deadline in March, and the FBI was directed to flag any documents that mentioned President Trump. Nothing came of that review until July when DOJ and FBI released an unsigned memo stating, quote, "there's no incriminating client list." Why was the July 7th memo unsigned?
The July 7th memo came from the FBI and the Department of Justice. Director Patel answered those questions very clear. And, you know, Senator Durbin, I find it very interesting that you refused repeated Republican requests to release the Epstein flight logs in 2023 and 2024. You fought that. Did you take money from Reid Hoffman, campaign donations, who was a huge Epstein friend? Why did you fight for years? Why did you fight to not disclose the flight logs, Senator Durbin?
I can tell you I did not refuse. One of the senators here wished to produce those logs, and I asked her to put it in writing, and she never did.
Yeah, I think Senator Blackburn would quarrel with you on that.
Well, I will quarrel with you as to Reid, somebody that you mentioned I never heard of.
Reid Hoffman.
So who gave the order to flag records related to President Trump?
To flag records for President Trump?
To flag any records which included his name.
I'm not going to discuss anything about that with you, Senator.
Eventually, you're going to have to answer for your conduct in this. You won't do it today, but eventually you will. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
I got
Mr. Chairman?
something here.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
Mr. Chairman, since Senator Durbin referred to me, I would really appreciate the opportunity to correct the record.
Proceed.
Because Senator Durbin knows I repeatedly asked for those flight logs. I brought up the subpoena. You even shut down the committee because you didn't want that, and you know I submitted that in writing, and you continue to misrepresent that, and I am not going to let that record stand.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Senator Durbin.
I just want to make it clear that the reason the committee business ended was that your side invoked the 2-hour rule. Point number 2 is I asked you if you wanted any documents like flight logs to put it in writing. You never did.
Yes, sir, I did, and your staff knows that I did.
No,
We'll submit, once again,
Send me a copy of
the
that,
information to you. We've done that several times, but we'll be happy to, once again, send it to you. I think your staff doesn't show that to you.
Okay. Well, as I started to say about the emolument clause, and Democrats bringing that up in regard to Qatar, back in March of 2016, they didn't care anything about my bringing up the emolument clause in regard. I wrote to the Obama Justice Department. That letter was based on Secretary Clinton's 2009 to 2013 financial disclosures when she was Secretary of State. Those disclosures showed that her husband participated in at least 62 events with foreign states. Some of those were speaking events.
All right,
Okay.
so
Are you ready, man? You ready?
yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Now, the first issue is you mentioned conversations with the White House, okay? Now, Mr. Trump could say any conversations involving him could be covered under the umbrella of executive privilege. That's what he could say. And they know
Mhm.
that. They're trying to make her look bad, but they know that. Number two, the gift involving the plane. The gift was given to the government, who then in turn can give it to Trump for his library. They know that that could be done because when presidents take donations, Barack had $864 million donated to his library. The plane that Trump's going to take is going to be donated to his library. There's no law that stops who can do it. There's no law that says who can contribute. Barack is the only one that exhibited or showed or disclosed who contributed to his we call it presidential library. Others, they don't do that. They don't disclose it. But there's no law that says they cannot accept gifts from anybody, anywhere around the world, involving their presidential um, library. Now, Qatar, that gave him the plane, or gave it to the government who would give it to Trump, Trump signed an executive order last week that anybody that messes with Qatar messes with the U.S.
Mm.
So that plane that the Qatar gave, the consequence is anybody that touches Qatar touches the U.S. Okay,
Oh,
you're right. The executive order, so you can't touch the Qatar. And involving the
so
500
hold on. One second. I have a question. Is that not a quid pro quo? I mean, the man, you do something for me, I'll do something for you. I'm just asking. That
it could
sounds
be
like a quid pro quo.
it could be seen as such, but what I'm saying is it involves you and me. This involves Qatar and the U.S. They're
Yeah.
not people. They're not personal items. Qatar, Trump can write any executive order he wants. And the one he wrote was anybody that messes with Qatar messes with the U.S. Now, if you
Okay.
want to put the plane with the order, you can. And then you got to go to the Department of Justice to illustrate your complaint. Now, who runs the Department of Justice? Okay. Now, the next
Pam
issue,
Bondi.
right, next issue is the 501 million homicides in Chicago. That's 7 per day. You got 2.7 million people, and seven people die from homicide.
Mhm.
7 people die per day out of 270,000 people that live in Chicago. Now Trump
Mhm.
can say that the crime is ridiculous. 501 people got killed, but you got
Right.
200.7 million people living there. Okay?
Yeah, but here's um the contradiction, because California had nowhere close to any homicides in that order, but yet and still they came and they did the exact same thing
Okay.
in California in Los Angeles district, in Los Angeles County.
Okay. The reason why I said 105 homicides because that's what they were doing to make Chicago safe. Now,
Right.
another issue is Trump has buildings in L.A., other places that harbor ICE agents. Okay, now if people attack those
Right.
buildings, attack those agents, he feels he can send his troops in to protect those buildings. They're not walking down Watts. They're not
Hmm.
walking down La Brea. They're going to the facilities that house ICE agents. That's what they're doing. Okay, that's why he's sending people to California to protect his buildings. Chicago, the other issue is crime. Now, involving
Yeah.
Epstein, the sex things. Okay, typically a prosecutor cannot talk about cases that are pending. The case is on her desk, the file. She has not reviewed the file, so she cannot.
And
Huh?
that's what she says.
Right.
That's what she says. However, that's what she says. However, the Epstein case is over with. You know, he was
Right.
convicted and
Right.
tried and convicted. Okay, so actually, uh, this is a case that has in fact
Right.
closed. So she can in fact
Right.
talk
Yeah,
about
she
this
can.
case. Okay, she can.
She can talk about it, but what I'm saying is the file
Mhm.
that was on her desk that she has to go through to determine who was involved with Epstein. She has not done that yet. She hasn't gone through the file.
She
It's
said
on her desk.
no. She
Oh, go
had
ahead.
no. Yeah, well, that's what right. She has. That's what
Right.
she's saying now. Prior to this, she said that she had she had seen the file. She had seen the file. Okay, and that's what she said before. Now she's changing. She's changing things up, and of course, she can be
Right.
fact checked. Of course, you and I were talking about this now, but we can fact check
Yeah.
this. Not a problem. However, the fact of the matter is that she can talk about the Epstein case because Epstein case is over with.
Right.
It's a
Yeah.
closed case.
Right.
The
It is.
files are
It is
still there.
it
The
is a
files are still
closed
there.
case, and she said that she had looked
Huh.
at the file, but when they asked her, "Can you just tell us the names in the file?" She said it's on her desk. She hasn't gone through it to extract the names involving Epstein. So she can't comment until she completes goes. That's what she's saying. Goes through the file. So they know that they can't do anything
Right.
about that. And
Right.
they were saying since
Well.
Bill Clinton went to 62 events involving foreign countries and
Mhm.
got
Right.
paid. If that's the same
Right.
as Trump getting the plane. Now the reason why he got paid because all the funds are going to his presidential library. There's no law that stops.
Now
Go ahead.
we're talking
Right.
about
I'm
Bill
saying
Clinton now, right? We
he
were
could,
talking about as far as
he
library go.
could
You were talking about Barack Obama. Now we're talking about Bill Clinton.
right.
That's
But
just for clarity.
all I'm saying is
Okay.
that
All right.
Bill Clinton received funds from a foreign country that went to his presidential library. I'm saying Barack was the only
Okay.
one that disclosed everything, everything. And
Right.
I'm saying Trump, that
Right.
plane will
Right.
eventually go to the Trump library. If you look at the laws, there is
Right.
no law that tells anybody they cannot contribute to the presidential library. There's no law that says they have to
Okay.
disclose what they receive to the presidential library. Okay? Now they can get money from
Okay.
anywhere
Okay.
around the world if it goes to the presidential library. So everything that Pam was talking about, she's done her homework. What the Democrats are trying to do is make her
Sure.
look bad. But at the end of the day, she
Of
knows what
course.
she's talking about. She knows what she can't reveal the conversations with Trump because if they said, "Oh, that's a no," Trump's going to step in and say, "Here's the umbrella of executive privilege, and any conversations that I have with my officials, come on in, it's covered from that." She knows that. Durbin
Right.
knows that.
Right. Of course.
Right.
Now I
We
agree. I
all know
agree.
that.
I agree. I agree with you. What you're saying. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. They are trying to make her
Right.
look bad. Of course. However, what we do know is we do know that this president is doing some things that is unprecedented in terms of the leader of the free world, which is the United States of
Who?
America's president. Now this has never happened before. He's doing some things, for example, that has never been done before, right? I mean, and so of course she is the attorney general,
Right.
right? She's the leader. She's the leader of the Department of Justice.
Right.
They're thinking that she's responsible for reigning in the president, which she is not doing. Matter of fact, she is in fact doing the opposite. But let's do this. Let's go to
When when
this
you when you say
segment.
he's doing things that have never been done, have you bought Barack Obama tennis shoes? Have you bought Barack Obama Bibles?
No, no,
Have you bought Barack Obama
no, I
cologne?
haven't.
Have you bought
I
Barack
haven't done that.
Obama mega hats? Have you bought Barack Obama
No, I haven't.
stickers? Have you bought Barack Obama
No, I haven't.
decals? Hey, hey, the list goes on,
No,
and
I
he's
haven't.
done things that no president has ever done. Okay, and had never done. And
Correct.
when you look
Correct.
at Trump's current position, the last time this happened was in 1890, I think 1884. Grover Cleveland was the president. He lost to Benjamin Harris. Grover Cleveland came back for his second term. There was a president between his first and second term, and the next three terms, he was a Democrat. He won, lost, came back and won. The next three terms were won by Republicans. So if you look at history repeating itself, Trump won, Trump lost, Trump won. The next three presidential individuals who win the White House will be Democrats. The next three elections will be
Okay.
Democrats. If you look at history,
Okay. I
if you
don't
look
doubt
at
that.
history repeating itself, because look at Grover Cleveland. In 1884, he was a Democrat. He won. He lost in 1888 to a Republican. He won in 1892. He won, he lost, and he won. Trump is the same way. Trump won, Trump lost, Trump won. In Grover Cleveland's position, the next three elections were won by Republicans. Grover Cleveland was a Democrat. So if you look at history repeating itself, the next three elections will be won by Democrats. If you look at history, and what
Yeah.
Trump is doing is guaranteeing that by getting rid of 300,
Right.
getting rid of
That's true.
300,000
Correct.
jobs. Trump won by 2.2 million
Right.
people. He won by 2 million people.
Right.
Trump had
Right.
77 million votes. Harris had 75 million votes. 90 million people didn't
Mhm.
vote. 90 million people didn't vote.
Okay.
So 77 voted for
Okay.
Trump. 75 voted for
Mhm.
Harris. 90 people watch TV. 90
Right.
million people watch TV. So what Trump is doing,
Right.
he's going to guarantee, based on history, that a Democrat will win the next three elections. So he's going to make it so bad that people are going to say, I voted for him, like the farmers, but I can't sell my soybeans. China would normally buy. I voted for Trump.
Right.
Now I get all these crops.
Right.
I voted for Trump. Now I have no workers to pick my crops. I voted for Trump. I can't hire
Right.
anybody at Target. I voted for Trump. I can't hire anybody at
Right.
Lowe's. I voted for Trump. They
Right.
took away Maria Gonzalez. I got my tortillas from Maria. She's been here 34 years. She's nice. I thought they were going to take away drug dealers. They took away Maria. So you got a lot of people that
Right.
voted for
Well,
Trump that are being disillusioned. Say, well, I thought he was going to do that. He did exactly what I thought he wouldn't do. So he only won by 2 million votes.
correct.
So if you have a 2 million vote
Correct.
swing,
Right.
the next Democrats, or what Trump is doing, are things that are not alike. The shutdown.
What he's trying to do is obviously what he's trying to do is eradicate
Right.
democracy. That's
But
the playbook. His whole agenda is to eradicate democracy as we know it today, and of course implement some sort of dictatorship where he is still the leader of what was
and,
the free world. So that's only up. But let's
and
go
what
ahead
I'm
and make your
saying,
comment, and then we're gonna go.
that could be his point. But what I'm saying, he doesn't realize the consequence of his action. That's what I'm saying. He sees
Correct.
things one way,
Correct.
but
Absolutely.
if you look at history, the consequence of his action could be a benefit to the Democrats. Could be a benefit. If you
That's
look at
true. I agree with you. I would
if you
agree
look
with you
at history,
100%
right?
if it wasn't set up for this country to fall under a dictatorship. This is what this whole thing is. Now, will he be able to do that?
And
That's
right.
the $100,000. I guess the
And
$1 billion question.
And
Okay?
Benjamin
But listen,
Franklin said, I think it was him or was it Thomas Jefferson, a democracy, if you can keep it. If you can keep it.
right?
That's
Exactly.
the Right,
Correct.
right. But
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. So here's my question to
yes, sir.
you, Mr. Smith. Do you think this Bondi is actually telling the truth in its totality, or is she lying about, for example, this Epstein situation?
What she's saying is the file is on her desk. She hasn't reviewed the file. Okay.
Okay.
Now
Right.
she
Exactly.
may
But
have.
it's on her desk. But let me ask you a question, sir. Now, let ask a question. You, Mr. Smith, have the files of, let's say, for example, Barack Obama, and they're sitting on your desk. You mean to tell me you're not going to read it? You're not going to go through it? I mean, this is the files of Barack Obama. You go like, hey, I want to, you, especially if you are a Republican who question
Right.
Barack Obama's legitimacy as
And
being an American citizen. You mean to tell me you're not going to
no,
go through
what I'm saying is
the
what
files?
she's saying is the file's on her desk. And by her not going through it, she can
Uh-huh.
say, I'm not going to answer any of your questions. You can give me the file in January. I'll let
Okay.
it sit till December. To December,
Okay.
and
Well,
knowing that you're going to ask me
okay.
questions. So I said, hey, I'm not even going to
Okay.
open the file. That way I can tell people I'm
Okay.
not going to answer your questions. The file is on my desk.
Exactly right.
That's what she's saying.
Okay, well let's go to this clip and see how
Okay.
she reacts to being her integrity being in question. Let's go to this. Let's go to
But I
this
did
tape, please.
notice that
In
you
this clip.
spoke at great length about pending litigation, specifically with respect to the questions Senator Cruz asked you about the sentencing of the Kavanaugh defendant. That's pending, right?
He was sentenced to 8 years.
I understand that, but that's on appeal, right?
We will be appealing.
Right, so that makes it pending litigation. So you made an exception with respect to
No.
the Cruz questions.
Hold on. No,
but you
those
didn't
were
answer any of the
things.
questions that you said were pending at litigation from any of my colleagues.
Those were facts that came out at the sentencing hearing. You're welcome to see the transcript of the sentencing hearing
I understand
with all the
that.
gruesome details of what they threatened to do to Justice Kavanaugh and other justices.
I condemn what that person did.
That was the sentencing.
But the point here is that that's pending litigation. You indicated you're going to be appealing. It's your right to do that. And you would not, you use that justification to not answer many other questions.
Justification, you're an attorney, Senator.
Okay.
You realize that.
I do want to go back to Homan. You know, there's a tape, right, with Mr. Homan? I mean, first of all, is there a tape that has audio and video of the transfer of the $50,000?
You would have to talk to Director Patel about that.
No, I'm talking to you.
I don't know the answer, Senator.
Yeah, you do know the answer to that.
Don't call me a liar.
I didn't call you a liar.
You just said I know the answer. I said I don't know the answer.
Well,
you have to talk to Director Patel. What I said is that investigation was closed.
If you don't know, why don't you know whether there was a tape and video?
Senator, I believe that was resolved prior to my confirmation as Attorney General.
Do you think that it is of public interest for the people to know what happened to the 50 grand that the FBI turned over to Homan?
Did you hear what I just said? That was resolved prior to my confirmation as Attorney General. That's why I said I would not know.
It's not resolved. There's $50,000. Homan has it, or somebody has it. Do you have no interest in knowing where it is?
You're not going to sit here and slander Tom Homan. The FBI and Deputy Director Blanche said there was nothing.
I'm not slamming Tom Homan. He got the 50 grand.
Tom Homan is doing, how do you know that? Tom Homan is doing a great job, as our borders are, keeping your border state safe. You're a border state.
Okay. So she said that she didn't know anything about this $50,000. What she is the leader of the Department of Justice, and she says she defers and says talk to Cass Patel about this situation when she is the head of the DOJ, and expect people to believe that she doesn't know anything about this situation with this money. So, of course, they're challenging her, without actually. I mean, he may have took a step back and just said, "Okay, I'm not calling you a liar," but basically he's saying, "Hey, you're not telling the truth." So what's your take on that,
Okay,
Mr. Smith?
what is taking place with him, it was an FBI sting. Okay? Who was the
Hmm.
FBI?
Right,
And
Gas
FBI
Patel.
counter agents recorded it, video and audio.
Hmm.
Okay? And then
Hmm.
her response is that 5 FBI agents and 5 justice prosecutors who looked at what was taking place found no evidence of wrongdoing by Holman. Now, when you ask him, Holman, did you take any money? He said,
Right,
if you ask someone that shot Joe down the street, Bill, he shot Joe. Bill, did you shoot Joe? Bill, the law says you're innocent until you are proven guilty. You cannot say anything that will
correct,
incriminate you. Guilt has to be proven. It looks bad, it smells
correct.
bad, it tastes bad, but guilt has to
Mm-hmm.
be. And she's saying that matter was reviewed by the FBI. Talk to them. 5 FBI agents and 5 departmental uh, justice prosecutors found no evidence of any wrongdoing. Okay,
Yeah.
he
However,
made it,
however,
and
Mr. Smith.
they don't know
However,
where
Mr.
the
Smith.
money is. They don't know
Right.
where the
Okay.
money is. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, that's true. But she says that they have to talk to Cass Patel. Cass Patel was not in was not the head of he wasn't the director of the FBI during that particular situation either. His confirmation wasn't quite, he hadn't been confirmed as the director at that particular point either. What happened was, as soon as this situation happened with the gentleman in question, Donald Trump, of course, fired the director, the FBI director. And my recollection is Donald Trump fired him, and then of course put Cash Patel in his place. And so I mean, so now that a lot of things can be swept under the rug at this particular point. Not saying that it was, but I'm just saying it could have been swept underneath the rug. Okay, all
Right.
right. So I'm just saying, yeah, that's could happen. But this, here's another thing, right? There is Donald Trump has a definite thorn in his side when it comes to people who are always questioning Donald Trump, and Adam Schiff is his is one of the main ones, right? And so I want to go ahead and go to him because I want to make sure we get this in within the hour. Okay, let's look at this. Adam Schiff.
Madam
Okay.
Chair, Attorney General
Okay. Go ahead.
Bondi, at your confirmation hearing in January, made a clear commitment you would not politicize your position. We are here today at your first oversight hearing 9 months into your tenure, at a time when hundreds of career prosecutors have quit because they were required to take unethical actions at odds with that promise, or feared that they would have to take such actions if they remained on the job. When over 1,000 former federal prosecutors have sounded the alarm about the unprecedented degree to which the powers of DOJ are being abused to go after the president's enemies. I approach this hearing with a heavy heart. As a former federal prosecutor myself, I served in a department that, whether it was under a Democratic or Republican president, would never use the office to go after the president's enemies or to hide the corruption of his friends. But today, the Justice Department has been used to cover up the possible corruption of the mayor of New York or of a high-level administration official taking $50,000 reportedly in cash in a bag, or a child sex predator who befriended the president and some of his cabinet members. And instead of preventing partisan weaponization, your department has engaged in a brazenly political prosecution at the president's explicit direction. The department has become President Trump's personal sword and shield to go after his ever-growing list of political enemies and to protect himself, his allies, and associates. My questions therefore focus on these two themes: hiding the corrupt acts of his friends and prioritizing the political prosecution of his enemies. So let me start with the shocking allegations of bribery and pay to play. 2 weeks ago, 4 major media outlets reported that Tom Homan, the president's top deportation official working in the White House, took $50,000 in cash in a bag from undercover FBI agents in September 2024, just over a year ago. According to these reports, Homan indicated he would facilitate securing contracts in exchange for money once he was in office in a future Trump administration. Reportedly, this exchange was caught on tape. Rather than pursue this investigation without fear or favor, the department and the FBI under your leadership or that of your predecessor before you confirmed quietly shut it down. Once news broke, your deputy and FBI director issued a joint public statement confirming that the Trump administration closed the investigation. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt denied Homan took the $50,000, telling a reporter, quote, "Mr. Homan never took the $50,000 that you're referring to, so you should get your facts straight." So today I hope you can help us get our facts straight. Was that true, what the White House press secretary said when she denied Homan took the money? Did he take the money?
Senator Schiff, as I stated earlier, I was not in office. I was not confirmed when that was handled.
So does that mean
Deputy Attorney General Blanche and Director Patel said that there was no evidence that Tom Homan committed a crime. Yet now you're putting his picture up to slander him.
No, I'm putting,
as much as you
his
can.
picture up showing an interview he gave with, I think, Fox, in which he was asked explicitly about these allegations that he took a $50,000 bribe, and he refused to answer. He said he didn't answer the question whether he took the money, so I'm asking you the question. Did he take the money?
Senator Schiff, I answered that question multiple times. And frankly, you know.
Well, I don't think, with respect, I don't think you did. But in case I just didn't hear you, what is the answer? Did he take the money?
Senator Schiff, that happened prior to my confirmation as Attorney General.
Do you know,
I said that.
Do you know, sitting here, whether he took the money?
All I know is that Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and FBI Director Patel said there was no case. And Caroline Leavitt is one of the most trustworthy human beings I know.
So
and,
was she?
Senator Schiff,
was she
if
right?
you worked for me, you would have been fired because you were censured by Congress for lying with your
We can stipulate to, you can stipulate to all your personal attacks on the Democratic members of the committee.
Personal attacks? You've been attacking my FBI director. You've been attacking my office. You've been attacking.
But what we're interested in,
borders are.
What we're interested in is the answer to these oversight questions.
You were
asked by my colleague. You were asked by my colleague.
Attacking good people.
Regular order, Madam Chair, so I can ask a question. You were asked by my colleague from Vermont whether you will support providing a video or audio tape, if it exists, of Mr. Homan taking $50,000 in bribe money from the FBI. Will you support a request by this committee to provide that tape or tapes to the committee? Yes or no?
Senator Schiff, you can talk to Director Patel about that.
Well, I'm talking to you about it. You're the Attorney General. This will be your decision. Will you support?
You don't have to tell me what is my decision and what is not my decision. I said you can talk to Director Patel.
You don't have to try to.
You think you've got a gotcha with Tom Homan, our borders are.
Excuse me.
Who's been out there fighting for our country since Donald Trump took office.
I'm trying to ask a question. Regular order, please. And you don't have to defer to the FBI director to pass the buck. So I'm asking you, will you support a request so that the committee, or indeed I believe the American people, should be able to see that video or audio tape? Will you support that request?
Will you apologize to Donald Trump for trying to impeach him?
I guess the answer is you won't support that request.
After you now know that Joe Biden tried to cover up Hunter Biden's involvement with Ukraine.
Excuse me. Let me do this, because I think it's valuable that the American people get a sense of what you've refused to answer today. So these are just some of the questions you refused to answer, or have answered with personal attacks on members of this committee. You were asked whether you consulted with career ethics lawyers, as you promised you would do, during your nomination hearing when you approved the president receiving a $400 million gift from the Qataris? You refused to answer that question. You were asked who or what role you may have played or who played the role in asking that Trump's name be flagged in any of the Epstein documents gathered by the FBI. You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether Holman kept the $50,000 bribe money. You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether Holman paid taxes on the $50,000 bribe money. You refused to answer that question. You were asked, did career prosecutors find insufficient evidence to charge James Comey? You refused to answer that question. You were asked, how are military strikes on these boats in the Caribbean legal? And you refused to even answer that question.
You were asked, law degree,
excuse me. You were asked, did you discuss indicting James Comey with the president? You refused to answer that question. You were asked, did you approve the firing of antitrust lawyers who disagreed with the Hewlett-Packard merger? You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether you support a restoration fund for violent insurrections to attack the Capitol on January 6th. You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether you were firing career professionals, career prosecutors, just because they worked on January 6th investigations. You refused to answer that question. You were asked by my California colleague whether you believe government officials, like immigration officials, have to abide by court orders. You wouldn't even answer that question. This is supposed to be an oversight hearing.
Oversight?
Excuse me, you can attack me after my time is over.
You've attacked all of us, including President Trump, for your entire career.
You can attack me later, and I know you've got plenty of canned attacks. We've heard them all day to day.
Canned attacks on you?
This is supposed to be—
No one needs a canned attack on you.
Regular order, Madam Chair. I'm trying to speak. This is supposed to be an oversight hearing of the Justice Department. And it comes in the wake of an indictment called for by the president of one of his enemies. This is supposed to be an oversight hearing, and it comes in the wake of revelations that a top administration official took $50,000 in a bag, and this department made that investigation go away. This is supposed to be an oversight hearing when dozens of prosecutors have been fired simply because they worked on cases investigating the former president. This is, and now
what
the current president.
What about the fires in California?
And
do you
this
care
is
about that,
supposed to be,
senatorship?
this is supposed to be an oversight hearing in which members of Congress can get serious answers to serious questions about
the riots in LA serious?
About the cover-up of corruption, about the prosecution of the president's enemies. And
I think you owe the president an apology.
When will it be
your entire career, frankly,
that the members of this committee on a bipartisan basis demand answers to those questions and refuse to accept
Clearly you're
personal,
a failed lawyer
refuse
because
to
you don't
accept,
understand when someone can and cannot answer a question.
Refuse to accept personal slander as an answer to those questions.
Personal slander?
With
Will
that,
you
Madam
apologize
Chair,
to Donald
I yield
Trump
back.
for slandering him? Personal slander.
Senator.
May I ask unanimous consent, Madam Chair, to introduce into the record the statement of 1,000 former Justice Department officials who warned that the Comey indictment is a democracy-threatening abuse of power. May I also request unanimous consent for the introduction to the record of 282 former career officials at the Justice Department raising an alarm who were voluntarily or involuntarily forced to leave the department because of improper actions taken by the Department of Justice. May I introduce, with unanimous consent, the Justice Department manual that talks about when initiating and declining charges are subject to impermissible considerations. And finally, Madam Chair, may I introduce the letter from Michael Ben-Ari, a career counterterrorism prosecutor, DOJ, a letter he nailed to his door, which concludes by urging officials to do the right thing for the right reasons, to follow the facts and the law, and raises the alarm that the decision to remove experienced career officials from U.S. attorneys' offices, the FBI, and critical parts of DOJ undermines our country's abilities to counter terrorist organizations, malign nation-state actors, and countless others that seek to harm our nation and its citizens. And he believes that the priority is prosecuting
you
the
still
president's
arguing,
enemies
or are you admitting?
rather than
Bondi,
protecting
Ms.
the
Bondi, one
country.
moment.
May I have unanimous
Are you,
consent
are
to
you
enter
entering
these
that
into the record?
without objection?
Thank you. I yield back.
Senator Brett.
Senator Moody, may I clarify one thing he entered in the record? I just want to say that I believe he entered a letter by 200 and something former employees. Well, I believe the spokesperson for that letter was also the spokesperson for Jack Smith.
Senator Brett. Thank you, Madam Chair. General Bondi.
Okay, Mr. Smith. So now we got about 5 minutes, Mr. Smith, and I want you to go ahead and give me your take on just what just happened.
Okay. When they said fire his enemies, Donald Trump said they impeached me twice. They indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served. So he wants to indict Comey, Petita James, and Schiff. When it comes to Holman, that's the FBI has to bring that attention to her office. Okay? Patel has to say, knock on her door and says, he did this. But then again, the contracts that he got paid for, were they to free immigration individuals, or were they with the contracts involving incarceration of the immigration individual? Okay. Now he wasn't going to try to set them free, so those contracts were in alignment with what Mr. Trump wanted. In terms of Comey, they all know that the number one person, I forgot his name, is I can't recall his name. He's the number one witness for the Department of Justice against Comey, and he said unequivocally, Comey did not ask me to leak to the public. Comey did not ask me to talk to a reporter without telling my name. And they said, well, Comey was indicted. And when you have an indictment, you don't tell the people on the jury that the number one witness against Comey says Comey did nothing. He did nothing. Comey said, bring it on. And Comey is happy because if you bring a lawsuit that has no merit, you're going to get paid because it's a frivolous lawsuit. And all they want to do is put economic burden on Comey. Trump knows that. He knows that Comey's not going to jail. He knows when the number one witness against Comey says Comey didn't do anything, that's why they had the investigation. It's like saying, Ted, you know Heman. Yes. You were at the laundromat. Yes. Did Heman eat all the donuts? I didn't see him. Well, we're going to use Ted to say Heman ate all the donuts. How come? Because Ted knows Heman. Ted and Heman were near the donut shop. So therefore, we're going to indict Heman. When they asked Ted, Ted says, no, Heman didn't eat any donuts, which is why Comey hasn't been indicted for the last 2 years. When you talk about the 240 people that got fired, you go back in time. What did Ronald Reagan do with the air traffic controllers? He told them, take a hike. Take a hike. He fired them, all of them. So if you want to talk about who Trump can fire, Trump said, I'm going to fire who I want to, and then if you have a legal objection, we'll go to court. But Trump looked at Ronald Reagan and said, air traffic controllers want to go on strike. He fired every single one that didn't do what he wanted to do. So it's all within his realm. And Pam Bondi, who's supposed to be politically independent, but people are supposed to lie. People are supposed to obey the rules of the law when they have a vehicle. Do they?
Right.
Do they lie? Do they? Okay. Why would if you hire a housekeeper, she's gonna do what you tell her to do? Is Pam any different? And Pam is real smart. She knows exactly what she's saying. The committee knows they can't do a darn thing. They can't do a darn thing, but make her look bad. Pam is
okay. So on that note, we're gonna close the show. But it was a great show. Mr. Smith. He fabulous as always. And we want you all to stay tuned because we're not stopping. We got the political guru here, Mr. Smith. I'm sure he'll be coming back to join us as well. So with that being said, thanks for tuning in, and until the next one,